Saturday morning, I'm watering my roses by the coastal villa when I hear tires screaming on hot asphalt. The smell of heated pavement and creosote fills my nostrils as two identical women jump out of a white Range Rover, marching toward me like they own the place. "Mr. Thornton," the first one waves a clipboard at me. "You've exceeded the allowable hedge height by 8 inches. That's $500 a day until you fix it." I slowly turn off the hose and pull my father's old mayoral badge from my gardening apron. 20 years I've carried this thing. Never thought I'd need it against my own neighbors. "Sweet ladies," I say, keeping my voice steady. "I think we have bigger fish to fry than your rose bushes." But they're not listening. The second sister, they look like carbon copies in matching pink cardigans, pulls out a tablet and starts snapping photos. "Melissa, get the mailbox too. Look at that color, completely against code." "Melissa?" That's the first one. The second must be Michelle. I've heard about these two from Charlie down at the pub. The Homeowners Association's new enforcers. Sisters who moved here 6 months ago and turned neighborhood watch into neighborhood warfare. "Ma'am," I interrupt, "I'm not sure you know who you're talking to." Michelle smirks. "Oh, we know exactly who you are. The mayor who thinks rules don't apply to him." She hands me a stack of violation notices. 12 of them, each one stamped with tomorrow's date. Improper paint color on shutters, grass exceeding 2-inch limit, non-regulation mailbox, vehicle parked in designated area for over 3 hours. She counts them off like she's reading a grocery list. That's $4,800 in fines, growing every day. My chest tightens. Have you ever felt that moment when you realize someone's been watching you, planning? These weren't random violations. They'd been building a case. "The hedge has been this height for 15 years, I tell them. "Previous administration was clearly negligent," Melissa says. "We're fixing that now." I watch them climb back into their Range Rover, identical smirks plastered on their faces. Through the windshield, Michelle waves a phone at me. Recording. The engine purrs as they drive away, leaving me standing there with a stack of papers that might as well be a death sentence. $4,800, growing daily. I look down at my father's badge. He dealt with troublemakers for 2 decades in this town. But these two, they weren't just troublemakers. They were organized. My phone buzzes. A text from Juan, my gardener. "Mr. Thornton, can't come today. Someone called immigration on me. Need to lay low." The pieces start clicking together. The sisters didn't just want my money. They wanted me gone. And if you're watching Conflict Story, you know, it's never just about hedge height. There's always something bigger lurking underneath. I fold the violations and slide them into my pocket. The paper crinkles like dried leaves, and somewhere in the distance, I hear the sound of a lawnmower cutting grass to exactly 2 inches. The war for my home had officially begun. The lawnmower sound fades as I walk back into my house, those violation notices burning a hole in my pocket. The smell of coffee still hangs in the kitchen, but it might as well be poison now. I spread the papers across my dining table, 12 violations, each one dated for tomorrow, but they're handing them out today. How does that work exactly? The phone rings. It's Walter Simmons, the HOA treasurer. His voice shakes like autumn leaves. "Tom, I heard about the sisters visiting you this morning. Walter's 78, been treasurer for 6 years. Never caused trouble for anyone. I wanted to warn you, there's an emergency meeting tonight, 7 p.m., community center." Emergency meeting about what? Silence stretches between us. Then Walter whispers, "About making an example." The line goes dead. I pour another cup of coffee and stare out my kitchen window. Across the street, Mrs. Peterson waters her garden. She's done it the same way for 10 years. Today she keeps glancing at my house, then looking away quick when she catches me watching. They've already started talking. By noon, the phone calls begin. First, it's my banker. "Tom, we received some concerning documents about potential liens against your property. Just wanted to give you a heads up." Liens? Already? And next call comes from my insurance agent. "Hey buddy, got a weird report about safety violations at your address. Nothing to worry about, but thought you should know someone's making noise." The third call cuts deepest. It's my deputy mayor, Sarah. "Tom, I think you should know. There's talk around town. People are saying maybe you're not setting the right example." Her voice carries that careful distance politicians use when they smell trouble. "Maybe take a step back from public appearances until this blows over." I hang up and walk to my front window. A white Range Rover cruises past. Slow, deliberate. The passenger window rolls down, and I see Michelle holding up her phone again. Always recording. The afternoon drags like a wounded animal. Every car that passes makes me look. Every phone ring makes my stomach drop. At 6:30, I drive to the community center. The parking lot's already packed. Cars I recognize from neighborhood barbecues. Faces I've known for years. Inside, folding chairs arranged in neat rows face a small stage. The smell of industrial disinfectant and stale coffee fills the room. About 60 people scattered around, whispering in clusters. The sisters sit front and center, identical notebooks open, identical pens clicking. Melissa wears a blue blazer tonight. Michelle chose red. Like they planned it. Walter catches my eye from the back corner and nods toward an empty chair beside him. As I sit, he slides a manila folder across his lap. "Financial records," he whispers. Something's not adding up. Before I can ask what he means, Melissa stands up and taps her pen against a microphone. "Good evening, neighbors. We're here tonight because our community standards are under attack." A projector screen drops behind her. The first slide shows my house, photographed from multiple angles. Red arrows point to my hedge, my mailbox, my shutters. This is what happens when people think rules don't apply to them. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. I see heads nodding. Mrs. Peterson won't look at me anymore. Michelle takes the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have 30 slides documenting the degradation of our neighborhood values." 30 slides. They've been planning this for months. The presentation continues for 20 minutes, every photo calculated to make me look like some rogue homeowner destroying property values. My grass looks shaggier than it really is. My paint seems more faded. Even my driveway appears cracked in ways I've never noticed. When they finish, Melissa calls for a voice vote on maximum enforcement of community standards. 60 hands rise into the air. Mine stays down. Walter's stays down. That's it. As neighbors file out, avoiding my eyes, Michelle approaches with a manila envelope. "Additional violations discovered during our comprehensive review," she says, handing it over with a smile sharp as winter. $8,500 now. Daily accumulation continues. I open the envelope right there. 8 more violations. Unauthorized garden decorations. Improper driveway staining. Excessive outdoor lighting. They're making it up as they go. "Sleep tight, Mr. Mayor," Melissa says, following her sister toward the exit. In the empty community center, with the fluorescent lights humming overhead, Walter opens his folder. "Tom," he says, "I think you need to see where all our HOA fees have been going." And that's when I realized the hedge height was never the real problem. The fluorescent lights buzz like angry wasps as Walter spreads his papers across the folding table. His hands shake, but his voice stays steady. "Look at this, Tom. 3 months ago, we had $47,000 in the HOA account. Today, $11,000. I lean closer. The numbers swim in front of me, but the pattern's clear. Money flowing out like water through a broken dam. Landscaping contracts that never happened. Security upgrades nobody asked for. Administrative fees that multiply like cancer. Walter, who authorized these payments?" He points to signatures at the bottom of each invoice. Melissa Karen, board secretary. Michelle Karen, community standards director. Both positions they created for themselves after joining the board. "They're bleeding us dry," Walter whispers. "But here's the scary part." He pulls out a property assessment document. My address sits at the top, highlighted in yellow. "They've been getting quotes from developers. Your lot's worth 3 times what you paid for it, especially with that lake access." The pieces click together like bullets sliding into a chamber. The violations aren't about hedge height. They're about forced sale. Drive up my debts until I can't pay. Force me to sell at auction, then swoop in with their developer friends. "Walter, how long have you known?" "Started putting it together last week. That's when I called you." He glances toward the door, making sure we're alone. "Tom, there's something else? I heard them talking after last month's meeting. They're planning to expand beyond just you." "What do you mean?" "The whole lakefront. Mrs. Peterson's next, then the Johnsons. Anyone with prime property gets the treatment." I fold the papers and slide them into my jacket. The smell of disinfectant makes my stomach turn. Or maybe it's the realization that I've been played from day one. What do we do? Walter looks at me with eyes that have seen too much. I don't know. But whatever you're thinking of doing, do it fast. They called another emergency meeting for Thursday. Something about expedited enforcement procedures. The drive home feels longer than usual. Every streetlight throws shadows that look like conspirators. Every house with darkened windows could be hiding cameras, recording my humiliation. At home, I pour 3 fingers of bourbon and sit in my father's old chair. The violation notices spread across the coffee table like a losing poker hand. My phone buzzes. Text message from an unknown number. Enjoy your last few days in paradise. I walk to the front window. The white Range Rover sits parked across the street, engine running, headlights off, waiting. Have you ever felt like the walls were closing in? Like every move you make just tightens the trap? That's when I remembered something Charlie told me at the pub last month. Something about the sisters and their late-night meetings with out-of-town visitors. Men in expensive suits who didn't look like they belonged in our little community. I grab my keys and head for the garage. If they want to play surveillance games, let's see how they handle being watched themselves. The Range Rover's engine purrs to life as I back out of my driveway. In my rearview mirror, I see them following, keeping their distance like pros. But here's what they didn't know about small-town mayors. We know every back road, every shortcut, every place to disappear when we need to think. Time to turn the hunters into the hunted. The speedometer climbs as I head toward the old quarry road, where cell service dies and the only witnesses are the stars. Behind me, their headlights bob like fireflies in the darkness. The quarry road winds through darkness like a snake's spine. My headlights cut through pine trees that have watched this town's secrets for decades. Behind me, the Range Rover's lights dance between branches still following. I pull into the old gravel lot where teenagers used to party before the town council shut it down. My engine ticks as it cools, and the smell of pine needles fills the night air. The Range Rover stops 50 yards back, waiting. I get out and lean against my truck, arms crossed. 2 can play this game. After 5 minutes, their doors slam. Footsteps crunch on gravel as the sisters approach, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Having car trouble, Mr. Mayor? Melissa's voice carries that same mocking tone. Just enjoying the scenery. Beautiful night, isn't it? Michelle steps closer, her flashlight beam finding my face. Funny place to come for scenery, all the way out here, so isolated. The threat hangs between us like fog. You know what I find interesting? I keep my voice conversational. HOA treasurers who notice missing money. Funny how numbers tell stories. Both flashlights freeze. In the reflected light, I catch something flicker across their faces. Not anger, fear. We don't know what you're talking about, Melissa says, but her voice has lost its edge. $36,000 in 3 months. That's quite an administrative budget for a neighborhood association. Michelle takes a step back. You're fishing. Am I? Walter's got quite the memory for numbers. Developers, too. Especially ones from out of state who pay cash for lakefront property. The sisters exchange a look I can't quite read in the darkness. Then Melissa laughs, sharp and cold. Even if that were true, who's going to believe a disgraced mayor facing foreclosure over 2 upstanding community volunteers? She's right, and we all know it. The realization settles in my chest like a stone. Besides, Michelle adds, by Thursday night, this will all be academic. The board's voting on emergency seizure procedures for properties in severe violation. Emergency seizure? When fines exceed property tax obligations, the HOA can petition for immediate sale to recover community funds. Melissa's smile cuts through the darkness. Your $8,500 becomes $15,000 by Thursday. Add interest and penalties, we're looking at $22,000? My truck's worth maybe $8,000. My savings account won't cover half of it. Sleep on it, Tom, Michelle says, turning back toward their Range Rover. Or better yet, start packing. Their engine starts and red taillights disappear through the trees, leaving me alone with the sound of wind through pine needles. The drive home feels like a funeral procession. Every house I pass represents a neighbor who voted against me. Every streetlight illuminates my failure to see this coming. At home, I pour another bourbon and call Charlie at the pub. Tom, it's past midnight, buddy. Charlie, you mentioned something about the sisters meeting with out-of-town people. What exactly did you see? Silence stretches across the line. Then Charlie's voice, careful and quiet. Three guys in suits, expensive cars. They met at the diner after hours, thought nobody was watching. But I was closing up, saw them through the window. What were they discussing? Couldn't hear much, but one of them had blueprints spread across the table. Big development plans, hotels, condos, the works. Charlie pauses. Tom, they're planning to turn our whole lakefront into some resort destination. The bourbon burns as I swallow. When was this? 2 weeks ago, right after the first violation notices went out. After Charlie hangs up, I sit in the darkness of my living room, staring at the lake through my window. Moonlight dances on water that's been here longer than any of us. In 48 hours, it could all be over. Not just for me, but for every family who's called this place home. My phone buzzes, another unknown number. Smart men know when they're beaten. I set the phone down and walk to my father's old desk. In the bottom drawer, beneath 20 years of municipal paperwork, I find what I'm looking for. A business card, yellowed with age, but still readable. Juan Moreno, landscaping and groundskeeping. Juan, who's been afraid to come to work because of immigration threats. Juan, who's watched these sisters operate for months. Juan, who knows things about late-night visitors that even Charlie missed. Sometimes the people with the most to lose see the most clearly. I dial his number, hoping he'll answer, hoping it's not too late for both of us. The phone rings once, twice, then a familiar voice. Mr. Thornton? Juan, we need to talk. Juan meets me at the 24-hour diner on Route 9, the one with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that could wake the dead. The smell of bacon grease and industrial cleaner fills the air as he slides into the seat across from me. Mr. Thornton, I shouldn't be here. Those women, they have people watching. What people, Juan? He glances around the empty diner, then leans forward. Security company, same men who came to my apartment asking about my papers. They offered me $1,000 to tell them things about you, your schedule, when you leave the house. The coffee tastes like ash in my mouth. What did you tell them? Nothing, but Mr. Thornton, they know things. They know about your morning walks by the lake. They know you keep your spare key under the garden gnome. They've been planning this for months. Juan pulls out his phone and shows me a photo. Two men in dark suits standing outside my house, measuring my hedge with a ruler. I took this 3 weeks ago, before any violations. They were building a case. My hands shake as I hold his phone. The measurement in the photo shows my hedge at exactly regulation height. They've been fabricating evidence from the beginning. There's more, Juan says. Last week I saw them meeting with the county assessor. That's when I knew they were serious. The county assessor? The man who decides property values for tax purposes. They showed him plans, blueprints. He was nodding, taking notes. Juan's voice drops to a whisper. Mr. Thornton, they're not just trying to take your house. They're trying to reclassify the entire lakefront as commercial property. The pieces fall into place with sickening clarity. Commercial reclassification would triple everyone's property taxes overnight. Families who have lived here for generations would be forced to sell. Juan, would you be willing to testify to what you've seen? He looks at me with eyes full of fear. They threaten my family, Mr. Thornton. My daughter, she's only 8. They know where she goes to school. Before I can respond, my phone buzzes. Unknown number, cozy little meeting, careful who you trust. I show Juan the message. His face goes pale. They're watching us right now. Through the diner's front window, I see a black sedan parked across the street. Engine running, windows tinted dark. Juan, go out the back, take your family and visit relatives for a few days. This is about to get ugly. He nods and slides out of the booth. Mr. Thornton, there's one more thing. The security guards they hired, they're not just watching you. They're breaking into houses when people aren't home, looking for things. What kind of things? Anything they can use. Old violations, unpaid bills, family problems. They're building files on everyone. Juan pauses at the back door. Whatever you're planning to do it fast. Thursday's emergency meeting isn't just about voting. It's about making an example that'll scare everyone else into compliance. After Juan disappears into the night, I sit alone with cold coffee and the weight of what's coming. Through the window, the black sedan's headlights flick on and off twice. A signal. I pay for coffee I barely touched and walk to my truck. The sedan follows me home, keeping its distance like a trained predator. At my house, I check every lock, every window. In my father's desk, I find his old service revolver, still licensed, still loaded. I don't plan to use it, but knowing it's there helps me sleep. The next morning, I wake to the sound of chainsaws. Outside my bedroom window, a crew in orange safety vests cuts down the oak tree that's shaded my house for 30 years. Mrs. Peterson stands in her yard, arms crossed, supervising. I throw on clothes and run outside. "What the hell are you doing?" The crew foreman shows me an official work order. Tree removal for safety violations, branches overhanging the property line. That oak's been there since before any property lines were drawn. Its branches have never bothered anyone. Until now. Mrs. Peterson walks over, her face set in stone. "I'm sorry, Tom. The sisters convinced me it was a liability issue. Insurance won't cover damage if I don't maintain clear boundaries." Another neighbor turned against me, another piece of my world carved away. As the oak crashes to the ground with a sound like breaking bones, I realize this isn't just about money anymore. It's about showing everyone in town what happens when you stand against them. The chainsaws stop, leaving silence heavier than the fallen tree. Tonight's the emergency meeting, 24 hours to find a way to save not just my house, but my entire community. In the distance, I hear the purr of a white Range Rover making its morning rounds. Time to turn the tables on these vultures. The stump of my oak tree sits like an open wound in the yard as I pace my living room. Walter's financial documents spread across every surface. Numbers that don't add up. Contracts for work that never happened. Money flowing offshore like a river running backward. But something's been nagging at me since last night. Juan's words echo in my head. "They know about your spare key under the garden gnome." I walk to my front garden. The ceramic gnome sits exactly where it's been for 10 years. Fishing pole in his tiny hands, that stupid grin painted on his face. I lift him up. The spare key's gone. My blood runs cold. They've been inside my house, going through my papers, my files, looking for ammunition to use against me. That's when I notice something else. The gnome's heavier than usual. I turn him over and find a small device taped to the bottom, a listening device, no bigger than a quarter. They've been listening to every phone call, every conversation, Juan's meeting, Walter's revelations, all of it. I pocket the device and head for my truck. Time to give them something worth listening to. 20 minutes later, I'm at Charlie's pub, which doesn't open until 4, but Charlie lives upstairs, and he's always been a light sleeper. "Tom, Jesus, it's barely noon." "Charlie, I need your help, and I need you to trust me without asking questions." He lets me in through the back door. The pub smells like stale beer and yesterday's dreams, but it's the only place in town where I know we won't be overheard. "What's going on?" I pull out the listening device and place it on his bar. They've been inside my house. They're listening to everything. Charlie stares at the device like it might bite him. "Those crazy sisters did this?" "Charlie, what I'm about to ask you might get you in trouble, but if we don't stop them tonight, there won't be a town left to get in trouble in." He pours 2 whiskeys, even though it's barely past lunch. "What do you need?" "I need you to make a phone call. Tonight, during the emergency meeting, I need you to call the county sheriff's office. Tell them you've witnessed suspicious financial activity at the community center." "That's it?" "That's it. Just get them to show up during the meeting. Don't mention my name." Charlie nods, but I can see the worry in his eyes. "Tom, what are you really planning?" Before I can answer, my phone rings. It's Walter, and his voice shakes with more than age. "Tom, you need to get down here. They've called in private security. Real security, not just those surveillance guys. Armed guards are setting up around the community center." "Armed guards, for a homeowners association meeting." "Walter, are you safe?" "For now. But Tom, I overheard them talking to someone on the phone. They mentioned something about a demonstration, making an example that'll be remembered." The line goes dead. Charlie refills my glass without being asked. "Tom, maybe it's time to cut your losses. Sell the house, take what you can get, start over somewhere else." I look at him through the mirror behind the bar. A man in his 50s, mayor of a town that might not exist much longer. A man whose father's badge sits heavy in his pocket. "You know what my dad used to say, Charlie? He said a town dies when its people stop fighting for it." I drain the whiskey and head for the door. "Make that call tonight, 8:30 sharp." The afternoon passes like a slow funeral. I sit in my house, knowing they were listening to every sound, every breath. so I give them something to hear. I call my lawyer, speaking loudly enough for their device to pick up every word. Jim, I'm ready to settle. The HOA violations, the fines, all of it. I'll pay whatever they want and sell the house quietly. I can almost hear them celebrating through the bug. But here's what I learned in 20 years of small-town politics. Sometimes you have to let people think they have won before you show them what losing really looks like. At 7 p.m., I put on my best suit, the navy one I wore to my father's funeral. If tonight's going to be a demonstration, I might as well look the part. The community center parking lot looks like a law enforcement convention. Private security vehicles, the Sisters Range Rover, cars from half the county, but also news vans, 3 of them. Someone's been making phone calls. Inside, every seat's filled. Faces I've known for years, neighbors who won't meet my eyes. The sisters sit at a folding table on the stage, identical briefcases open, identical smiles painted on their faces. Behind them, 2 security guards stand at attention. Walter catches my eye from the back row and taps his watch. 8:25. Melissa taps the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we make history. Tonight we show what happens when community standards are ignored. The projector screen drops, showing a photo of my house with a big red foreclosed stamp across it. By unanimous vote of the HOA board, we're seizing this property for immediate sale to recover community funds. Applause fills the room, my neighbors applauding my destruction. That's when I stand up. Point of order, I say, my voice carrying across the room. Both sisters freeze. This wasn't in their script. I'd like to address the financial irregularities in the HOA accounts before we proceed. Melissa's smile falters. There are no irregularities. $36,000 in missing funds says otherwise. The room goes silent. Even the security guards shift uncomfortably. Michelle grabs the microphone. This man is desperate, making false accusations to avoid responsibility. That's when I hear it. Sirens in the distance. 8:30, right on time. Actually, I say, walking toward the stage, I think we should let the sheriff's office sort this out. They should be here any moment. The sisters' faces go white as the sirens get louder. And that's when everything changed. The community center doors burst open as sheriff's deputies flood in, badges gleaming under fluorescent lights. The smell of authority and sudden fear fills the room as conversations die mid-sentence. Sheriff Morrison, a man I've known for 15 years, walks straight to the stage where the sisters sit frozen like deer in headlights. We received reports of financial irregularities involving this organization. I'm going to need to see your books. Melissa recovers first, that practiced smile sliding back into place. Sheriff, this is highly irregular. We're conducting a lawful community meeting. Ma'am, embezzlement of community funds is a felony. The county takes these allegations seriously. I watch from my seat as Michelle's hand moves toward her briefcase. Inside, I know she's got backup drives, offshore account numbers, evidence of their whole operation. But here's what they didn't know about small-town justice. It moves fast when it needs to. Sheriff Morrison, I say, standing up. I believe you'll find what you're looking for in their vehicle. White Range Rover, plates ending in 47. Michelle's face goes paper white. You can't search our car without a warrant. Actually, ma'am, we can if there's probable cause. Morrison signals his deputies. And a financial consultant named Walter Simmons provided quite a bit of probable cause this afternoon. Walter stands up from the back row, documents in his shaking hands. $27,000 transferred to an offshore account registered to a shell company. Invoices for services that were never performed. Property assessments that don't match county records. The room erupts in whispers. Neighbors who applauded my downfall 5 minutes ago now stare at the sisters with growing understanding. Morrison takes the microphone. Folks, I'm going to ask everyone to remain calm while we sort this out. But it appears your HOA fees have been systematically stolen. That's when Melissa makes her mistake. She lunges for the briefcase, trying to grab something from inside. Morrison's deputy is faster, catching her wrist before she can destroy whatever evidence she's reaching for. Let go of me. This is harassment. But the deputy's already pulling out a tablet, external drives, and a folder marked Property Acquisition Timeline. Michelle tries a different approach. This is all a misunderstanding. We can clear this up privately, work out some arrangement. Ma'am, you're under arrest for embezzlement and conspiracy to commit fraud. The handcuffs click with finality that echoes through the silent room. As the deputies lead the sisters away, Michelle turns back toward me with pure hatred in her eyes. You think you've won? The development's already approved. The investors won't stop just because we're gone. But I'm already smiling. Actually, Michelle, I checked the county records this afternoon. Turns out the development permits were filed using forged signatures, including mine as mayor. That makes it conspiracy to commit fraud against a municipal official. Her face crumbles as the reality hits her. Not just embezzlement charges, federal charges. The deputies escort them toward the exit, past neighbors who now see them for what they really are. But I'm not done yet. Sheriff Morrison, there's one more thing. I pull out my phone and show him the listening device I've found. They've been conducting illegal surveillance on multiple residents. Morrison examines the device and shakes his head. That's wiretapping, federal crime. As the sheriff cars pull away with their red and blue lights painting the parking lot, the community center slowly empties. Neighbors who wouldn't look at me an hour ago now stop to shake my hand, apologize, promise it won't happen again. But Mrs. Peterson lingers by the door. Tom, I'm sorry about your oak tree. I was scared. We were all scared, Margaret. That was the point. She nods and heads home, leaving me alone with Walter in the empty community center. So what happens now? Walter asks. Now we rebuild. New HOA board, transparent finances, real community oversight. I look around the room where my neighbors almost voted away my home. And maybe we plant a new oak tree. Walter chuckles, the first time I've heard him laugh in weeks. Think it'll grow as big as the old one? Give it time, Walter. Give it time. 3 months later, the sisters were sentenced to 5 years federal prison. The development company pulled out when their permits were revoked, and the HOA recovered $43,000 from frozen accounts. I kept my house, my hedge, and my faith in small-town justice. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the only way to save your community is to let it see what it's really fighting for. The new oak sapling in my front yard isn't much to look at yet, but Juan says it'll outlive us all if we take care of it. And you know what? I believe him. If you've made it this far, maybe hit that like button. And if you've got a story about standing up to bullies in your own neighborhood, drop it in the comments. Because sometimes the smallest fights matter most.